To the cloud. Here we go. I missed I'll go back over that at the end, Dr. Oki. Let's see. So we have our recording in progress. Again, this is Elisa Williams with the Community Health Workers Table Talk with our guest for this month, talking about managing stress and taking a stand against stress. All right, you all, I'm not going to be nervous. We have some great folks here today. We've introduced Dr. Oki, and now I will go to Olivia Blank Stewart. Olivia is a licensed clinical social worker who holds a master's degree in social work from Aurora University, and she has an expertise in working with adolescents and adults. She is skilled at treating an array of mental health and behavioral difficulties, and I'm not sharing. Hold on. I want to share. There we go. There she is. She is skilled at treating an array of mental health and behavioral difficulties, including anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, anger management, self-injurious behavior, suicidal ideation, and body dysmorphia. You'll have to tell us more what that is. She has experience assessing and treating general mental health, substance abuse disorders, and dual diagnosis disorders. Olivia provides comprehensive mental health treatment services, and she's known for her patient-centered approach to therapy using various treatments modalities, including dialectical behavioral therapy, acceptance and commitment therapy, and cognitive behavioral therapy. Acceptance and commitment therapy. You'll have to tell us more about that for sure. And then third, we have our own Dr. Shubhra Kannan. She works with the Urban League currently as a system and data administrator at Quad County Urban League. She brings the expertise of psychology and IT management. She has a doctorate degree in psychology, and she is a certified Scrum Master. So she's working both wings of the analysis. Shubhra brings us a decade of successful experience in research and counseling for depression, anxiety, and addiction. And she graduated from the college DDU University in Gorakhpur, UP, India. I told her I didn't want to mess that up. With that passion, although Shubhra is not working in the field of counseling, she is regularly counseling people in her own personal and professional life. Shubhra believes that because counseling and talking about psychological problems are important, the service should be provided regardless of the ability to pay. Shubhra enjoys walking with her dog, hiking, dancing, and biking. And then finally, but not least, our own Reverend D. Clark, Master of Divinity, and MS in Mental Health Counseling. I know Dee from a long time. We have been friends a very long time, and I really appreciated her saying yes to being a part of this conversation, as she has earned her 4th master's degree. I don't know.
No,
it just loving the ability to learn. And so Dee has a mental health counseling degree, provides spiritual support to patients and families living with ALS, which is amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. She also, did I say it right?
Yeah, you did.
Thank you very much. I kind of put it in the phonetic spelling so that I could say it. She also facilitates training and education in hospice care, death, dying, grief, and bereavement. Dee has her prior current roles. She serves as a hospice chaplain for several hospice agencies for more than 10 years, where she provided end-of-life care and support to patients and families throughout Northern Illinois, both in-home and in skilled nursing facilities. Reverend D. Clark received a Bachelor of Science in Psychology from Southern University in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, followed by a Master of Divinity with an emphasis in pastoral care from Northern Seminary and a Master of Science in Mental Health Counseling from National Louis University. Reverend D is a member of Trinity United Church of Christ. She was ordained in August 2014 by the Chicago Metropolitan Association of United Church of Christ, the 10th of 14 siblings. A little bit of stress. Reverend Clark and her husband, Deacon Robert Clark, reside in Northern Illinois. They have 3 grown children, 3 grandchildren, and 2 pets, a Shih Tzu named Cookie and a Dachshund Lab named mix named Jackson. Welcome, panelists, to the CHW Quad County Table Talk, where we're talking about managing, what are we talking about? Managing stress. Taking a stand against stress. I don't even know the name of my own title. All right, with that said, I definitely want to open up this conversation by talking about what the definition of stress is. And so I want to just lead off with, let me pull down my share screen, stop sharing, so that we can each see one another and talk about question number 1. What exactly is stress? Now, I give one more caveat here. We've asked the folks who are our panelists to be a part of this because they each represent either the physical portion or the emotional or the social aspect of dealing with stress. So they'll answer those questions, the questions that we've prepared according to their background, as well as according to their experience. But we want this to be a conversation. All right, so with that said, I'll open it up with you, Ms. Olivia. What is stress as it relates to the emotional aspect?
Sure. So stress from an emotional stance, or stress in general, is built up pressure that exists due to undealt with emotional experiences, and that can be related to whether it's undealt with stressors financially, relationship wise, past traumas that haven't been dealt with, and that stress can impact us spiritually, emotionally, behaviorally, physically.
Okay, very good. With that spiritual portion, I'm going to toss it over to D. Clark now. Minister D. Clark, can you give us expound on that definition or add to it if you would want to?
Well, just as she said, anyone can actually experience the stress, and especially in the spiritual component of dealing with stress. A lot of times, or sometimes some people can feel that in their own Christian walk, that they're being forsaken, and it causes stress that God isn't hearing me, or my family is not hearing me, or I've been diagnosed with like an ALS, diagnosis, sure, and I'm not receiving the support from my family. So that definitely can cause a lot of stress, even in the spiritual walk, because, sometimes I think, in our spiritual walk, we look at the power higher than us as a jack in the box.
That's interesting. And I, as you started out talking about that, and you mentioned the spiritual component, I really did consider that, how we think, if I pray about it, if I meditate on it, if I do this, then I'm going to get the answer that I need, and my body will be healed, my mental health will be healed, everything is going to be all hunky-dory. When in fact, that's not how it works. God is not a jack in the box. It's not a hit it and get it answer.
Right.
Interesting. Thank you for that. Shubra, Dr. Shubra, your definition of stress. Can you give us some explanation there? You're on mute. We can't hear you.
She's still muted.
Yeah, I don't think you're muted. I think you may have to check your microphone. If you click on the arrow next to your microphone, and it'll give you options as to do same as system. Try that.
Now you can hear me?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
Very good.
Okay, good. Okay, so just wanted to add to what Miss Clark was talking about, the spiritual thing, and it's so very important because every time we feel stressed, people will say, and I do to my kids too, like I tell them, like pray to God, and everything will be fine. But no, that's not it. That's not it. It's like we are training them wrong, and that's where the definition comes in picture, because stress is the psychological response to a stressor. It's like when the psychological response happens, it's your perception. What are you perceiving about the stressor? So anyone, if somebody is scolding you, that is a stressor for you, but how are you perceiving it? Are you taking it into the right direction or the wrong direction? So it's the perception that makes a difference. And it's so very important that when you're perceiving something wrong or different from what it looks like, it all thought process changes. And because the thought process changes, you go into the total negative direction. But some people take it in a different way, like they have a different perception. They take it like, okay, somebody is giving me direction, somebody's advising me, maybe I can take it as the advice and maybe I can work on it. But few people will take it and, oh no, it's not good. I mean, people feel offended. So to me, stress is both taking a holistic approach of mind and body. If you see a stressor, what is your psychological perception of it, as well as what physiological changes you go through in that moment. So like if some stressors are in front of you, you are perceiving it negative, you're feeling negative thought, you're feeling anger, you're feeling irritation, and your body changes to it. So you feel shaky, you feel like a little bit of headache, you feel like overwhelmed. Oh, what's happening? So that is actually a stressor. And those stressors we need to understand. We need to observe our like life a little bit more. We need to observe our behavior, like where are we going, where are we getting those stress, like what are the situation, what are the objects that's stressing me a lot, what are the thoughts that's stressing me a lot. And then that when you figure that out, you will be able to manage stress. It's not that hard. Trust me.
It's interesting that you say that, because I was going to the direction of, can you change your mind about the things that stress you out? And it sounds like you can, but you touched on the physiological. So before I go to the perception piece, and I definitely want to circle back to that, I want to bring up Dr. Oki is to talk about that physical part of stress and what it does to our bodies.
Yeah,
or what it can do to our bodies.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good. just doing a mic check.
Sure.
Yeah, so absolutely. External stressors can cause physical pain. So a lot of time the technical term is the psychosomatic, right? So the psycho being the stress part, somatic meaning body. So kind of a quick example would be you're giving a presentation where we're sitting here in front of everybody and you get these little butterflies in your stomach. So that's an external stressor that's causing a physical reaction. So stress can be, fatigue, it can be work, it can be depression, anxiety, and fear. But those emotions, those stressors can cause physical pain. So the physical pain can be headaches, it could be high blood pressure, it could be weight gain, because stress is going to change your endocrine system, your hormones are going to go up. So then it leads to, weight gain. So that physical or emotional stress is going to affect us physically. And the other thing that it does is it can actually weaken your immune system. So those are the things that I help to manage, is to make sure that we're dealing with those stressors so that it doesn't affect you negatively health-wise, especially with the immune system, with everything else going on.
Yes.
We always want to make sure that immune system is strong so that it can fight off those external stressors.
Now
So-
you just brought us into a whole nother realm
Yeah.
talking about, right? I see you shaking your head, Olivia. The fact that we're talking about physical stressors or things that can cause us to have stress, and then it can affect us physically, which then affects our immune system, which then causes us to be
I'm sick.
open
Yeah.
Right.
to get sick. Yeah,
I'd love to add to that.
sure.
So a lot of times we think that emotions are the way we think about things or our perception, but
Mhm.
emotions are actually our body's physiological response to an event. So we have an emotion and that emotion causes the thoughts, right? So with the emotional response, for instance, you think, let's say anxiety, you start getting the rapid heart rate, you start having like maybe some trouble breathing, you might notice like the sweating. With sadness, you might notice a tight throat, you might notice like your cheeks swelling up. Our emotions are actually our
Can I-
bodies.
Can I say something really
Yeah.
quick right here? Because I just said this, we had a stress workshop here the other day, and I asked the guy, the doctor, John, why do I cry when I'm in stress?
Mhm.
And you were just
Yeah.
touching on it. I just wanted to share
Yeah,
that.
no, absolutely. So a lot of times we have these emotional responses, right? And
Yeah.
just like, but we always think about emotions as how we think about things, but they are a physical response. And
Mm.
so when we don't listen to that physical response, it's like, just like how if you had a physical injury and you didn't deal with it, it just gets louder and louder and louder.
Mm.
Emotionally, it's like, you're not dealing with this. I'm going to get louder and louder. You don't listen to me when my cheeks swell up. You don't listen to me when I'm getting tighter. Now I'm going to have stronger physiological responses so that you hear me. And then we get into all these health problems that can occur because of the fact that we're not listening to our emotions effectively.
Yeah, interesting.
Or
So with
intertwined. So like it's the physiological response, psychological response, everything. It's just all together. It just create that physical effect on us, which we need to stand against it. I mean, we need to understand that what it is to actually deal with it.
Yeah. So how do we unwrap that? How do we, as an individual, as my neighbor, as my child, as me, how do I unwrap what it is that's causing me stress? And then, or even, so I've identified that I'll cry if I feel stressed. Because really, what I really want to do is I want to say what I want to say. I want to express it the way I want to express it, but I'm keeping myself in a box so that I don't come off as some other kind of way. How do we address that so that I don't have to be in a box, but I actually can deal with the stress and release it?
I think you can recognize the triggers for those things,
Mm,
when it sets you off and how to deal with the triggers, and that comes into your coping skills.
okay.
When you feel yourself, when you feel that stress rising, you want to step back, you want to take a breath, or you want to do a different kind of communication. And I think someone had up here by the DBT and the ACT, which is really good in diffusing those kinds of thoughts and being aware of what actually is going on.
Now,
It's
you
like
said DPT and ACT. What is that?
the dialectical
Dialectic
behavior therapy and the acceptance and commitment therapy.
Oh, okay. That was Olivia.
Yeah, one of the probably the foundation of therapy in general is just getting to understand your emotions.
Mm,
And once you can understand your emotions, what purpose they serve for you, that it's your body's physiological response, you can start participating in mindfulness where you're aware of how your body is responding to events. And then let's say we have a scale of 1 to 10, right? We might of emotions, we might not notice our physical response until we're at that 8, 9, 10 where our cheeks are swelling up. We might want to have an outburst. We might want to get physical, we might want to do something outrageous, right? When we're at a high elevated stance. But the more we become aware of our emotions and how they work and understand them, we can deal with them when we're at a 1, 2, 3, because we always have emotions. We always have our body's always sending us a response. So the more we're aware and understanding ourselves and how we tick, the quicker we'll deal with it. And the more we give ourselves a chance to self-soothe, cope quicker.
Mhm, mhm.
I wanted to add over here, Alyssa,
Sure.
like I relate to you because earlier I used to be like in my younger age when I was coming out of college as a fresher and I had to face interviews. I
Mm.
used to be like one interview I can tell you about. When I was there, I was just mum. I didn't even speak a word. And they kept asking me questions for 10 minutes and I didn't even speak a word. And I was like, what happened to me? And when I came out of that room, then I realized that what was wrong with me. I really felt it like why I couldn't speak over there. And it was stress that made me like to be in that situation. And for that, I could tell like later on, I did my own therapy. I wanted to understand my own behavior. And that brought me to like breaking it down, my thoughts, my behavior, my perception of the event. So my perception whenever I went to an interview earlier would be like, oh my goodness, this is so important for me. I have to get it right. I have to do it. So I would always give myself like should. I should be doing this. I should be doing that. I should be doing this. But like, which is not right at the moment. Like you have to be relaxed, right? Because if you keep on giving yourself that much of like should, you are giving expectations. So you are creating those expectations around you,
Mhm.
which you may come up with, which you cannot. So that's why I just started thinking over it and I started stopping myself to that extent. And now when I think of an interview, it's just a conversation. So I train myself to understand, okay, there's nothing wrong. You're just going to talk and discuss over there. So I started training myself like that. And then another perception was like, oh my goodness, those are knowledgeable people. Those are experts. They will ask me questions. What will I answer? And all those things will come to my mind. But I changed my thought again that those are just human beings, just like me. They are also there. They might have a different view or something. So just understanding that situation and breaking down your thoughts and what is like, how can you change and cope with that?
Yeah.
It's a big thing. And that's how I train myself on that one for
So
that stress.
how hard is it actually to break habits, retrain your thoughts, recognize stressors, to do that yourself? Or how do you know when to reach out for help? And I'll ask uh, either of you could take. I'll give it to Dee. Dee, can you go there with us?
You know, I think that sometimes we are in a situation where if we have a background in, you know, psychology, therapy, it can be very easy for us who have been just trained to be like, all right, I need to do some therapy on myself.
Yeah.
However, typically, I would say it's you don't just grow up knowing these things typically, unless you have a fantastic household where you're being brought up in love and understanding of how emotions work. But unfortunately, for the most part, we as a society, and especially in the community, a lot of times don't have upbringings where that's just naturally taught to us. And
Mhm.
so it isn't easy. It's retraining the brain. It's worth it. It's worth it to get to the point where you know how to manage your mood, manage your stressors, understand yourself. But it's not an overnight thing. It's not, I'm going to change the way I think about this and it's boom, it's going to happen. It's a journey. It's constantly, how, you've spent your entire life thinking a certain way.
Yeah.
You are going to be intentional about trying to make changes, but there's slip ups. It takes a work, but it's work that's well worth it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I
And,
agree
Like
and
to
with
add
that
to
in
that.
mind, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I don't know.
Go ahead, Dee.
I just wanted to say, like, I agree with Olivia. It's like, I was just with her. That's it. That's what.
Yeah,
Go
and I
ahead,
was
Miss
gonna
Oki.
go too, with the positive self-talk is definitely a thing. And I do believe every therapist needs a therapist.
Mm,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
'Cause that
What I
helps.
was gonna say is, a lot of times too, like you were saying, every time this happens or anytime I'm encountered with a stress, I start crying. So
Mm,
if it's an issue with the same type of stress and the same response, there's a trigger there,
yeah.
right? So you have to be able to, one, identify that there's a trigger, and then either try to work through that, like Miss Kanan was saying earlier, you try to kind of identify, okay, this is what I see happening. Let me try to work this through. But if it's a trigger that you're not able to work through, because you would ask, okay, well, how do I know? When do I seek help?
Mhm.
Is it, you have to ask yourself, okay, I know this is a trigger. Can I work myself through it? Or if I can't, go ahead and seek the help. But it's, a lot of times there's things that trigger, and it's not just from today. It's something that could have happened as a child. It could have
Yeah.
happened, and so you have these little things that occur. And then anytime you experience something similar, you get that same physical response because of something that may have happened or some unresolved issue that you may have had in your younger years is
Mhm.
now affecting you now. And sometimes you don't even realize that it's a trigger from who knows when.
Now, have
So-
you experienced in your practice where folks have come into your office and you're giving them chiropractic care and they think it's because something that's new that's all of a sudden showing up, but you recognize that it actually is a long-term event?
Yeah, well, one of the techniques that I do is called neuro-emotional technique. It's a kind of a deep form of therapy to try to identify if there is a stressor. It's kind of involved, it involves some muscle testing and that sort of thing, but it helps to identify the root cause of that stressor. So it's a trying to get down to why is this recurring? So like you were saying, every time I experience this stressor, this is what happens. Every
Mhm.
time someone cuts me off while I'm driving, I want to, MF them, those are triggers from things that are happening in the past. But it's trying to identify that. So one, you can either, work through that and figure, okay, well, what does this remind me of? What happened, does something happen when I was a kid, or and then be able to work through that. But if you can't,
And are you walking people through that process?
oh yeah,
Okay.
it's
Okay.
and some people are conscious of it and others are not. And that's where it becomes difficult, and you needing to be able to get the help is not being able to recognize or understand where it's coming from.
Mhm.
So, in Kanan's example, she was able to identify, this is like freaking me out to do this interview, but these are people, right? So she's talking herself and walking herself through it and saying, okay, they're just regular people. It's like, imagine that everybody's naked when you're doing a presentation, right?
Yes,
It's that
yes.
kind of concept. And then once you identify that and you can work through it, then it's like, oh, okay, now I can move past this. And now when I go through an interview, I will never have to be silent or quiet again.
Mhm.
She was able to identify that, but it's when you're not able to identify it and you keep experiencing those same triggers and those same emotions, that's when it's best to get the help.
Let me ask this
I
question.
also learned, yeah.
Does
sorry.
anger arise from stress?
Yeah.
Saying
Duh.
yes, it does.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Go ahead, Dee.
Hello?
What are you saying to us?
Hello? Yes, yes. You know, and just like the doctor was saying, is that you recognize the trigger, but it's not the present. It's something that happened way back when.
Mhm.
But then you realize that, you know, you have anger issues, you have anxiety issues, but those things happened way back when,
Yeah.
in something in a totally different, probably context. But when you start to do the work, then you know, then it'll become real to when it really happened. And then you can start to do the work to change that behavior.
Yeah.
What is some of the work that you do to do the work?
Well, one of the things is first you have to realize you have to be agreeable that you need help.
Mm,
That's
Yeah.
that's the first step. That you
Especially when
recognize,
there's anger issues.
especially when there's
'Cause
anger.
people don't think they have an issue.
Right.
because it's their regular response, right?
Right.
Yeah,
It's normal
Yeah.
behavior to them.
sure.
And so when you start walking them through those things, and a lot of things will come to surface, things that happen in their childhood that they have pushed down, they didn't want to deal with. And then it starts to come to the surface when they start to do the work. And it's not easy. And I tell my clients, I said, okay, this is hard work. And it is, because there's some things that you have not dealt with.
Sure.
Stress, anger, anxiety, parents, all of those things.
I was just gonna say, so this has to have something to do with how we manage relationships. The the way we either stay connected with people, we don't connect with people, we can connect easily. And so that first question, and then my second question with that is there good stress?
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
so
When you get
So-
excited about something, you got a raise, you got a big check coming in.
yeah.
Mhm.
Is,
I mean,
but how
I've not experienced that at all.
how is that stressful though, Olivia?
Stress can also, sometimes it's more of the, when we think stress, we think a negative emotional
Yes.
response, but sometimes
Right.
it's the pressure. And so even let's say a raise or a job promotion, that can be such a blessing in so many ways. And we can be very excited about it, but two things can be true at once, right? You can be very stressed that, you know, all the pressure that's going to come along with it. And how am I going to deal with this? And what would this mean? And all of the fortune telling, while still also being grateful and thankful for the new opportunity. Same with potentially having a child or a new relationship or
Okay,
any of those
okay.
next stages in life, right? They're a mixed bag.
Yes, yes.
So the
yes.
best answer will be the project deadline when we have to finish the project deadline. We
What do
work
you have
on
coming
it.
up in 2 weeks?
Yeah, we are stressed out, but we work on it and
Yes,
we get
yes.
it done.
Yes, yes, yes. So again, with that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, good. Well, like Olivia was saying that, you know, stress can be a good stress, but, you know, when you're under stress, it kind of helps you to put things into perspective, right? So, you know, stress can tell you, okay, it's time to slow down, or stress can say, hey, we have to push a little bit harder so we can finish that deadline, or stress will, you know, tell you, hey, you need to eat, or you need to sleep. So stress can be a good thing because it's going to remind you, it's a physiological response, right? It's a reminder that something is going on and there has to be some sort of change. So, and if it's not checked, right? If there isn't a check and balance for that, that's when you end up with all these other issues.
So now when we talk about stress and we talk about the holidays, and that stress is a reminder and it's to help you bring about a change, why do people experience so much stress during the holiday periods? like from Thanksgiving through the end of the year.
Triggers.
Bakers.
Ah, the triggers. That's where those triggers come in. Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Either, go ahead. Go ahead.
We are creatures of association, right?
Mm.
We connect things, kind of like you were saying about the road rage. It could be because of undealt with, like, nobody sees me, like this stuff has nothing to do with each other, right?
Right.
So holidays, associate it with family, associate it with money, associate it with cold weather, you associate it with a great
Oh.
deal of pressure and expectations. This is how things should be. We should follow these traditions. We should, stay in budget, but also give everyone exactly what they want.
Yes.
What are the expectations of what people think about my cooking or my gift giving? There's all of these associations with the relationship dynamics.
Yes.
There isn't much room to not be stressed out in the holidays.
Wow. You mentioned like several different things that I never associated with it. Cold weather, you know, just how you feel about cold weather, but you think it's because it's the holiday time, it's the holiday. But really it could be, I woke up and it was dark and I got home and it was dark. I never had gone outside during the daylight. And I have a friend of mine, she actually committed suicide because she lived in Alaska and she was there during a period of time when it was just all dark.
Yeah.
And so she had a chemical imbalance. And as a result, you know, the weather stressed her out.
1 in 4 people have seasonal depression.
Seasonal affective disorder, yes, it's very real. And
Yeah.
I was saying to my director that this is the sad season. So
Yeah.
we have to check on our clients more because depression, you know, like you said, you get up in the morning, it's dark.
Yeah.
You go to work and you come back, it's still dark.
Yes.
And it doesn't always affect you in this way of like, I can just give myself for an example. I actually lived in Florida for the past 7 years. So this is my first winter back.
Oh Lord. Welcome to the cold weather. It's coming.
So I don't remember ever feeling this way.
Great.
But I don't remember ever feeling this way, but this has been the first year I don't experience sadness. I'm not low in that same sense, but I am fatigued. I'm physically exhausted in a way that I didn't experience pre-daylight savings. And so it's not always that you're going to be having those typical symptoms of like, I'm really sad or I'm suicidal by any means, but it could be just feeling exhausted, feeling like even the concept of like, man, I don't have a day anymore. This is a bummer that now, you know, I'd rather go home and lay down than maybe participate in some physical activity. It's going to take that extra push.
Wow. Wow.
You have to be intentional.
It takes a lot more force for me to get up in the morning than it did pre-daylight savings.
I'm going to go
That's
to
where
nutrition
management
with
works.
that. Go ahead, Shubra.
Yeah, I mean, I was saying like that is where the learning comes in. So learning comes in pictures. So then you start managing your stress, and managing it's the solution to stress, so that it's not going full on and then giving you depression and anxiety and all those other things linked to it. So if the stress is addressed at a very first stage, and then you know where the triggers are, and then you understand them and you manage them, learn to manage them, that is going to help you. And you'll be better off. I mean, stress happens to me every day, but like I know how to deal with it. Yeah.
Right. And I'm going to go back to that nutrition piece because I found myself, and I keep talking about myself, and I know I should talk more globally and community-wide, but I'm sure people in our community experience this as well. I was working on a grant and I really had to be focused, and then all of a sudden I wanted a sandwich, and then I was working, and all of a sudden I wanted some chips. And I just recognized this. And then when I did recognize it, I realized that I can remember being in school when it was test taking time, or if it was paper time, I wanted some chips or I was gonna go to the vending machine, or and I don't know. I think just eating just helps me to get through the task.
Stress
Is that
eating.
crazy?
Well, it definitely does happen. We talk about nutrition and stuff, and with regards to immune system, everyone talks about cold and flu season, but it's really not cold and flu season, it's sugar season, right? So, we go into October. What's in October?
Halloween.
We go into November, we got Thanksgiving. We go into December, we have Christmas. So people are eating tons of sugar, tons of carbs. Well, what that does then is it lowers our immune system. That's why we get sick. So,
What?
yes. So,
Sugar season.
yes, so it's sugar and carb season, not flu season, because it's the lowered immune response because of what we're eating is what causes us to become sick. It's not because it's flu season, not that there's, viruses just flying all over the place.
Yeah.
It's just how our body is able to handle that response because of the nutritional stressors that are affecting the body. So you have, like in your case, you're talking about how you're stressing and then you want to eat. Well, that's a trigger, right? And a response to, okay, I'm stressed, so I want to eat. Versus, if you're stressed, you can still eat, but then what you're eating is going to affect how you feel. So if you eat chips or if you eat candy, or if you're going to feel sluggish, you're not going to do as well. You're not going to, feel good doing what it is you're doing. So now you're kind of, it's like you're feeding that stress, right? Because now you're stressed, you're not eating right, and now you feel sick, or you feel tired, or you feel exhausted because of the foods that you're eating. So if if you change it up, you're gonna, you take something or eat something that's gonna give you energy, you're eating, but now you're fueling the energy as opposed to bringing you down.
Wow.
The change at
Feeding
that moment.
stress.
Yeah, bringing
How
the
you
change.
mean if you've heard of that? Feeding stress. That's so interesting. So I guess this just brings me to my question here. How do we encounter, now that we know some of the things, what are some things that we can do to combat stress? And I'll just start from the corner. I'm looking at you all in order here. Olivia, what are some things that we can do to combat stress?
The best way to regulate our emotions effectively, like the best thing we can do is regulate our emotions effectively by giving ourselves, like I like to say, it's our foundation of our pyramid, is we need to do this. This goes back to my dialectical behavioral therapy. So we have to do physical activity, eat healthy, sleep well, and do something that gives us a sense of self. So physical activity, some movement. A lot of people think all or nothing. I need to be running 6 miles a day or it's not worth it. No, you could stretch, you can do some tensing your muscles, all 5-minute walks, anything helps. But getting some form of physical activity or finding physical activity you love and enjoy, but getting some form of movement. Sleeping, sleep matters. We cannot regulate our emotions effectively if we do not get good sleep. And so learning how to manage your sleep, participate in effective sleep hygiene, so important. Eating well-balanced, healthy meals, comfort food. I know we're talking about associations. There's an association between stress and this is something that I used to cope. But if we can if we can deal with the real stressor, whatever it might be, and learn to manage our moods effectively in other ways, having a healthy balance of, a well nourished diet makes a huge difference in how we regulate effectively. And then doing something that gives us a sense of self.
Yeah.
Typically, we are all consumed in our roles, right? Whether it's a role of as a worker, as a partner, as a parent, as a you know, who you are for everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Finding something that gives you a sense of self, a skill, a hobby, but doing something that's for you goes a long way when it comes to feeling like a person and not just, a robot in a ton of different roles.
Wow. Love your neighbor as yourself.
Yeah.
B. Clark.
Yeah,
Couple
I was
things.
just I was just going to say, Olivia covered it very well
Yeah.
about, and doing deep breathing, um, relax, relaxation, stretching your muscles, not doing a whole lot of things. Talk about your problems, journaling. I like to do that, which is really good. But taking a walk and not, a marathon, just like she said, a 5-minute walk is a good thing, just to get a breath of fresh air.
Mm.
Or you can just sit with a lighted candle.
Mhm.
That's also very relaxing.
And have tea.
And have tea.
Do you still have your tea each night?
Yeah, I don't call it tea anymore, but I do
Okay.
drink at night.
Okay, Dr. Shubra.
And so mine is the same. Miss Olivia put it really right. Some
Mhm.
form of activity should be there.
Mhm.
Relaxing yourself through deep breathing. It's really, really important. Every day I do it in the
Let me ask
morning.
you this in deep breathing. Is there a way you're supposed to do it? Like in your nose, out your mouth, or out your mouth, in your nose? I just realized that swimming causes you to breathe differently. Is there a way to do deep breathing?
Yeah, so there are different ways that they teach now. You can just do what the other day in the webinar we all saw it, like how he was suggesting. So just inhale, count 4 in your mind, and then hold till 6. I mean, just number 6, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold, and then exhale, and then hold on to it. And it is very important that you do the belly breathing and not the chest breathing. It's very, very
Mm.
important, because if you're chest breathing, that actually is not relaxing you. The breathing should be like a balloon, like how you blow the balloon and the balloon fills out. That's how it should be. So when you put your hand over your tummy and you feel like it's coming out, that is the actual breathing. So you should be inhaling, hold, and exhale. So you feel that it's like you feel really relaxed with that
I
kind of
felt it.
breathing.
They actually say, so diaphragmic breathing in through the nose while pushing out your diaphragm, pushing out your belly out through the mouth is the best way to breathe. It's how babies breathe to cope. And then over time, we learn that we lose that ability, but it's the best way to self-soothe when you're feeling, especially with rage, our emotions, our amygdala is lit up and they say that the best way to calm ourselves down, calm down our central nervous system is through diaphragmic breathing.
Mhm.
Doing it for about 3 to 5 minutes makes a drastic change in our ability to regulate and self-soothe.
Wow.
For my kids, like what I do, like it's for difficult. My daughter can do it, but not my son. So I told him nostril breathing. The nostril breathing is
Schubert,
like,
we're having a little bit of difficulty hearing you. I think when you move, either your microphone is moving or
oh
something's
no,
going on.
it's just the computer one. You breathe now. Are you listening me right?
We can hear you now.
Okay. So what I was talking about, the nostril breathing.
Yeah.
So you just hold one side and then you breathe through this inhale and then close this one and exhale from the other. So you do this with these 2 fingers. You do it for like 5 or 10 times, and that regulates your breathing. So then you slow down. And after that, if you do your belly breathing, it really actually helps you to do it. So it trains you to be focused. And when you do it with your eyes closed, it's more focused. So
Mm.
this is kind of training you with one nose, just inhaling and holding that nose and then exhaling from the other nostril.
Wow.
Yeah, that one. And I do like the 5 minutes walk, but sometimes I don't like walking and I do dancing. So dancing relaxes me too.
And
So
what is your, what
I
type of
just do that.
dancing do you do?
I do Indian classical dancing, which really is good. So I feel focused, I feel empowered, I feel really good about myself.
Is that the sense of self, Olivia?
Yes, 100%. And I do my physical activities, my sense of self as well. It makes, then you can do two birds, one stone.
Right.
Nice, nice. Dr. Oki.
Yeah, so there's everything that everyone has said is definitely on my list. Couple of other things that I would add is to unplug at night. Sure to get off
Wow.
your cell phones, your TVs.
Right.
Try to eliminate as much of that electronic interference in your space. The next thing is, I think a big thing, people don't allow themselves to do it, but I think Alyssa does, is allow yourself to cry. Give yourself permission to cry. You know, I have people that tell me, well, I don't want to cry because if I cry, then I'm giving in or I'm accepting whatever it is that's making me cry, you know, or that person who made me so mad, they win. It's not about letting them win. It's about releasing it. It's a stress reliever. So give yourself permission to cry, but also give yourself permission to laugh.
Yeah.
So watch a comedy, you know, read a book that's funny, you know, do laugh therapy or just start laughing, take a bath. You know, being able to take a bath is cleansing. So especially, you know, if you've got some CBD bath bombs or, you know, something like that, get some music, just to be able to give yourself that moment to be by yourself, which sometimes being by yourself is also what you need to de-stress, because if you're a mom, you've got kids, a husband, you're taking care of everybody, but you need that moment of peace just to allow yourself to calm down. And then being a chiropractor, you know, I'm always going to say get adjusted, because getting adjusted helps to take that stress off your spine, off your back, so that everything has a chance to be able to function and communicate with the rest of your body. So
awesome. Awesome.
Can I add?
Yes,
give
please.
give yourself permission. You know, I know you said to be sad, to feel, but to feel anything. There is no such thing as a bad emotion. Emotions are our body's physiological response to a situation. Being angry is not bad. Being frustrated, annoyed, sad, they're not bad. The behaviors that come along with them can be associated with bad, but you deserve to feel every emotion. Like your body needs that. That's respecting your body, listening to your body, so that you're not holding up that energy. We need to just allow ourselves the ability to just feel it.
And to feel it, yes. To acknowledge it, to be aware of it, yes.
Right.
That's interesting. That's interesting. That's what this the stress presentation gave me the other day. He said that I do the crying thing because I'm not allowing myself to express myself the way that I want to. And as a result, that pinned up feeling can cause physical damage, because that causes high blood pressure. It can cause, you know, your kidneys to be a certain way, your heart, whatever, all those different things that can come along with just pinning up that emotion that I'm not acknowledging. Yeah, interesting. So now I have some questions for you. What advice would you give to the audience to overcome the stress of holidays combined with the pandemic? Because we have a whole new situation here where, you know, well, I think we've adjusted to being inside. Now we're trying to go outside and not be sick, not get infected. We want to do Christmas shopping, but all the stores are closed. So you still got to shop online. What the heck? That brought me stress. I'm gonna just tell you right now. Going to the mall and no stores are there. What do we do?
Yeah, that's a tough one. You know, me being in natural health care, I have, I think, a little different of a perspective, and I don't want to open up a whole new can of worms here, but
Open
you
that
know,
can.
it's yeah. But you know, it's you know, being able to spend that time with your loved ones and your family, you know, everything boils down to, so all the suggestions that we all made in terms of how to handle our stress, it's essentially big picture, being able to do lifestyle changes, right? So if you're able to make those little lifestyle changes, it's going to make you a healthier and happier person, I think, in general. But you also want to be able to live your life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This pandemic has created a lot of fear. So what does fear do? Causes stress.
Yeah.
Create a lot of anxiety,
Yeah.
stress, right? It's keeping people away from their family, stress. So now all that stuff, what does it do? Lower the immune system, right?
Ah,
So I always say, try, if you're able to keep that immune system nice and healthy, follow your proper precautions, whether you're vaccinated or unvaccinated, that's a different, you know, discussion. But you have to do the things that make you feel safe, and then be able to make those lifestyle changes and be able to live your life. We can't live in fear. We can't live in anxiety. We can't live in this kind of stress because it's not healthy for us in general. So, you know, my thing is, do what you can to be happy and healthy, and you got to live.
yeah.
I mean, being stressed and fearful, it's no way to live.
No way to live. That's not a good combination.
No.
Dee, what do you have to say to that? That
I
pandemic
would
thing.
agree with that. You have to acknowledge all of those things, you know, because it is different.
Mhm.
And the new normal continues to change.
Yes, I like that new normal.
Yeah, it's ever changing. So I would say acknowledge your feelings, and I can speak for myself, you know. I haven't seen my kids in almost a year and a half
Wow.
because of that. You know,
Yeah.
they're in Indiana, and you know, so it's different. Well, I got to see my son. He came for Thanksgiving, and it was really, really, really wonderful.
Mm,
And talk about crying, and it was tears of joy
sure.
because I hadn't seen him, you know.
Yeah.
But to acknowledge that and um, do the social distance thing, you know, mask up, you know,
Yeah.
and if you can volunteer someplace. You know, there's a lot of places
Yeah.
in the community that would benefit, you know, because it's a good feeling when you do something for someone else, it really
Mhm.
makes you feel better.
Yes.
So I would say, you know, do some volunteering, um, make up some homemade gifts, you know. I would say bake cookies, but you know, this is COVID, so nobody's really doing that anymore, which is kind of sad. But do
Yeah.
something for someone else, and it'll
Sure.
bring joy to you.
That's a good point. That's a good
Yeah.
point. Anytime you help someone else, you're helping yourself, really.
Yeah.
Shubra, Dr. Shubra.
Kind of everyone, whatever they said, like I feel that now we should accept the change.
Mm,
Once you accept it, then your mind will start working. What new can I do?
oh, what new?
Maybe,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
what different can I do? What
Yes.
can I do in this situation now? Because I've been doing all those things for a year long on this Christmas holidays, but it is different. This is pandemic era, so it is totally different. So I have to come up with some new ideas. So think like that. Think, widen
Mm,
your views. Like,
yes.
so it will happen once you accept the change. And now we have been living for so long in this pandemic that we have already accepted it in a way. but
We have Zoom.
to acknowledge it. Yeah. We start acknowledging, we start accepting, and then from there on, we will understand like, okay, maybe this time I'll do in a different way. Maybe
Mhm.
I'll take this in a different way. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Olivia.
Yeah, everyone spoke beautifully. I think the only thing I would add is that, a lot of times there's such financial stress with the holidays, and when we take COVID into consideration there, a lot of people's financial situations look different.
Sure.
And one aspect is just remembering why it is that we're participating in the holidays. It's not about the amount of gifts we're giving. So much of the time we're putting so much pressure on ourselves to perform, of outdoing last year and giving more, giving the best. And in all actuality, it's remembering to be intentional about putting the value on the family, on friends, on why we're actually celebrating this holiday, whatever that means for everyone. And
Sure.
typically it's not to give the best gifts.
Right,
And
right.
so just being intentional there, because it's a time where you could be very hard on yourself about the expectations of what
Yeah.
Christmas means.
That is excellent. Thank you all so very much. This has been a great discussion, and I feel like we've taken away a lot of good things. Some of the things that I wrote down is regulate emotions effectively by doing physical movement, eat well balanced, sleep. These are like not rocket science, right? And then
Not
have
rocket science, but we don't do it.
things that we don't
Yeah.
do. Things that we don't do, right? Just move, be well balanced in your eatings, go to sleep. Don't sit up all night binge watching television, and then have a sense of self. And I love the fact that you mentioned is that we should give. Just give. Try giving, because in the giving, then you will feel good. It's like is that dopamine, or is that
Mhm.
what that hormone is that is released when you feel good about doing something?
Sense
so
of
when we
reward.
it's a reward, right? And you see it's immediate gratification actually. And as a result, then we reduce our stress. We can reduce our stress and laugh more. That was some of the other things you all said, to laugh more. I love this one. Unplug at night. Now you might not unplug every night, but unplug at least some night. Unplug everything, all the electrical interferences. Allow yourself to cry, allow yourself to laugh, allow yourself to take a bath. Come on now, be by yourself. Check that out. And then as you do that, then you can go to Dr. Oki's office and get adjusted. And then I think we started out in the beginning talking about the fact that um, uh, it can be stresses can be your perception of what stress is, but that it is definitely a psychosomatic, I don't know what to call it, a thing, response, that
Yep.
your emotion equals a physiological response to an event. Your emotions are a physiological response to an event. And and triggers happen just because of things that may have occurred in your life, whether it's in your adulthood or even if it's from childhood. And so as we understand our emotions and we learn what those triggers are, we can better have expectation of how to respond to those triggers. And that here's neuro-emotional techniques that Dr. Oki talked about to help identify what those stressors are. So either of these women have opportunities and they do business and they have practices that they're willing to help others as they show as far as the roles that they play in their job, that they help others. And what I wanted to do is, since we have about 15 minutes left, I wanted to find out if there's anyone in our audience who may have had questions regarding the stress that they face in their own lives, or even how to reduce the stress that you may have actually have had. Anyone in the audience want to have any questions? The floor is yours. Very good. Everybody is stress-free, especially, especially after this conversation. That is wonderful. Do we have a question?
I'm Bee Beasley. How are you?
Hi, Beef. Welcome. Welcome.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank your whole panel. I totally enjoyed listening to you all about handling stress. And one of the things that it makes me more aware of is the fact that a lot that was mentioned, I was doing and wasn't even aware of it.
Oh,
That I
yeah.
was doing quite well, right? Yeah.
Very good. Very
Yeah,
good.
so I was glad to hear that. But one of my biggest concern is for our young people.
Yes.
You know, when you're talking about the unplugging, these individuals are so much more, I would say, knowledgeable, willing to learn than what we had a hold of from the 50s coming into the 60s. But now they've gotten so caught up in, they don't see a problem with the way they're always on the technology.
Yeah.
They can work it. But I think that one of you mentioned about, but we need relationships with people. It's not just enough. You do a what they call these podcasts. I don't know a lot about this, but you've listened. I hear people listening to these stories or what someone else is saying. And I'm thinking, but you're not getting the relationship that I had with Stella next door.
Yeah.
You're on podcasting, or everyone in the house, we think we're doing so well financially. Everyone in the house has a TV in their room.
All right, Dorothy.
Guess where they watch it at? Nobody is
room.
together. Everybody is in there. That scares me. I don't like it. If I could change it, I'd snatch out every TV. You'd have to be in one spot to watch it, or you wouldn't get that just bothers me tremendously.
Yeah.
I hear our young people saying, well, I'm all stressed out. You guys know about it. You're more we speak about it more.
Yeah.
But you don't think you're stressed out. You don't think you're in depression.
That's interesting. The fact that we do know more, we have more access to information. We have more access to mental health care.
Right.
Mental health care is well talked about now, but yet we don't feel, I think one of you all may have mentioned the fact that when we're accustomed to doing something one way, then we just become accustomed to doing it. I see you're wanting to say something, Olivia.
Yeah, so mental health within our young people is one of the blessings, like you said, it's that we're talking about it finally.
Yeah.
Up until, our adolescents, they're very much so aware. I mean, there's still some stigma, but nothing compared to what we've gone through in the past as far as like the shame that comes with dealing with stressors, the shame of mental health. So it is such a blessing that they are more aware, and a lot of them are willing to deal with it, and it's encouraged within their friend groups. But with the unplugging, you mentioned dopamine earlier, and dopamine is it's a reward system that our body gives us. It creates motivation and energy, but it's also, we were not meant to get it instantly. We were meant to get slow drips of reward. Think about how up until very recently, even within our lifetimes, going to a grocery store, looking for our meals to prepare, cooking a home cooked meal, that in so many ways is like delayed gratification, right? You go through all these steps to get a reward. Now you can go through fast food, you can get Uber Eats, things instantly happen. So there isn't as much, so now it's like, what would you rather do? Get something instantly or work for it? Would you rather build relationships that are going to be, in person, where it's complex and there's so much, there's reward to it, but it's a slow
Wow.
reward versus instant gratification. I'm having a quick conversation with someone and then never speaking to them again. You only get
And
the
they
good.
like me. And they
You
like
only
me.
get the good, right? You
Yeah,
only get the positive reward. And so it's releasing dopamine at rates that our brains aren't used to managing. We have gone
Wow.
our entire, we've gone all of humanity with slow drips of gratification. Now through technology, instant gratification. I know when I was a kid, it was looking up words in a dictionary. Now it's looking up
Going to
words
the
on
library.
Google. Now it's Google. I don't have to use the Dewey Decimal System anymore. Now I can just instantly get a book off of Kindle. And so because of that, the more that we encourage boundaries when it comes to technology, of course, we don't want to limit children in the way that we have to raise them for the world that they're going to live in, right? So, but we also need to show a balance of, you cannot regulate, or you're going to feel such depression and such an inability to manage daily life if you're only getting constant instant gratification through technology. So boundaries being set from a young age does matter, because it is so addictive. It's like giving kids heroin based on how much dopamine is being flooded in their system. Drugs are something that releases dopamine at a very instant level, and so is like phones, video games, all of that. So setting hard boundaries does matter.
I was just going to add to that. We've seen more adolescents willing to open up about their mental health coming in,
Yeah.
because they do realize something is wrong. They don't have the words to form what it really means, but they know something is wrong. So the stigma is definitely being taken away. They're more open to come in and say, yeah, I'm dealing with this, or I don't feel good inside my skin. So there is change coming. And so I'm happy to see in the Black and Brown community that we're more open to mental health care, even the children and adolescents, especially during this time of COVID.
Sure. Yeah. And our young people, they have increased in anxiety and, all of that, in depression, and a lot of it stemming from their social media, and which then of course causes stress. I just spoke with a young person this past weekend telling me that, oh, I think I might have an eating disorder because she doesn't want to eat, because she wants to stay slim. And so I told her I will be speaking with you again. And now that I have each one of your numbers, I may be giving her one of your numbers to contact. But what would I tell her in that instance when I speak back to her?
You have to ask her, why does she think she needs to not eat?
Yeah.
Because it's coming from someplace.
Okay.
Because she probably feels invisible, or no one is affirming her, or no one has said anything to her. The other thing too is that during this pandemic, when I said the teenagers, the adolescents are coming in because of the isolation.
Yes.
Of not being social with their friends in school. That's the other issue.
I've heard that over and over. I was a substitute teacher for a while, and some of the kids, they were saying how they were so glad to be back at school, because they were like on 2 days on, 2 days off at the time when I was subbing. And then of course, then it all shut down again. And they were just like, they were so glad to be at school, just to even if it was on, the classroom wasn't even full, they were just happy to see one another and touch each other. And there was no social distancing going on. Let me just be real. They were not walking down the hallway the one way they were supposed to. They were still slapping five and and hugging and embracing one another and just happy to see one another. But yet there were still some who preferred being at home. They did prefer being isolated or separated, I should say, because that was just the space that they were in. Yeah. Well, if we don't have any other questions, and I just want to thank Olivia and Dee and Dr. Shubra and Dr. Oki for your great insights on delivering us from stress and helping us to manage that and taking a stand against it. Again, this is the Quad County Urban League Community Health Worker Table Talk. We will be back again on the 4th Thursday in January, and our subject for the month, for next month, is nutrition, because guess what? We will have left the sugar season. And we and we'll need
And
to
you have
adjust.
Valentine's Day.
And right before Valentine's Day, more sugar. And hopefully we'll be able to adjust our bodies and maybe even do a Daniel fast. I actually am planning on doing one to help us to re-regulate. And so I just may have you back on, Dr. Oki, so you can help us understand what those nutritional things are, along with some other folks that we will invite. And please join us here again. Look on our Facebook page. We'll post this because it has been recorded. We will do, this will be posted on our YouTube channel, the Quad County Urban League YouTube channel. And you can also watch the mental health presentation there, as well as a portion of the cancer awareness conversation. We got hacked on that night. So we had to shut it down. So there's only a portion of it there. But it was really good. And we've enjoyed doing this. I believe folks will be healed. I believe they'll learn from your great wisdom that you've shared with us tonight. We thank each and every one of you. Thank you to our audience for joining us. Thank you to Katrina for sending out for creating our link so that everyone could register. And we just will say good night. And with that, I'll say good night. Thank you so much again.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for having me.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a great evening. Thank you, B, for asking your questions.